tonight.
Grand rising, everyone.
The so-called Queen of Canada is released on bail. Residents raise concerns about drug use and violence around Regina's new YWCA. And an exclusive look at the challenges impacting Canadian military operations in the north.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Monday, September 8th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. The woman who calls herself the Queen of Canada is out on bail. Romana Didulo returned to court in Swift Current Monday for her hearing, and this time she was joined by her supporters. Alexander Kwan has our top story.
We're going to the bail hearing today.
Romana Didulo gave directions to her followers as she walked into Swift Current Provincial Court on Monday.
Team, secure the royal puppies and the funds, you know who to get a hold of. All right, and I'll be seeking a jury a jury trial.
The self-proclaimed Queen of Canada has agreed to a long list of conditions in order to be released on bail.
Of course, we were looking that she be detained, but part of our concern was her willingness or unwillingness to abide by conditions, and I think that was fairly addressed by the court.
The details of the hearing are under a publication ban, but what we can share is that Didulo will have to remain at a residence in Regina. She is also not allowed to go within 50 kilometers of Richmound. The 50-year-old had been staying in the village northwest of Swift Current for the last 2 years. That's until the group's compound, located in an old school in the community, was raided by police last week, and more than a dozen others were arrested. Do you have anything to say?
Go straight across.
Go straight across.
She faces one count of failing to comply with an undertaking and intimidating a justice participant. She offered few words as she left the courthouse. Bail conditions include keeping the peace, having no contact with anyone she's alleged to have intimidated, and complying with a search at any time without a warrant. Still, Didulo tells her followers she is the highest power in Canada and laws do not apply to them. The group's compound was closed by the Saskatchewan Health Authority last week. The health authority deemed the building not suitable for humans. The mayor of the village says Didulo has terrorized his town and that this feels like the beginning of the end of their troubles.
That's the feeling. That brick has been taken off our chests, each and every one of us, and our kids are free to play. And I know some kids still went to the park, and not very many, but they'll be driving, trust me, and they'll be at the park, and everybody's face will have a big smile on.
Didulo says she wants a trial by judge and jury. She's scheduled to appear back in court next week. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Swift Current.
Prairie Harm Reduction in Saskatoon is warning people of a deadly strain of fentanyl circulating in the city. The Ministry of Health issued a drug alert this weekend after Prairie Harm detected xylazine and benzodiazepines in the fentanyl strain. The substance appears as green and brown flakes, and people who ingest it may experience severe sleepiness, resulting in shallow breathing or even death. Prairie Harm says overdoses from this strain of fentanyl cannot be reversed with naloxone.
Each of those come with its own symptoms, with their own consequences, and their own need for treatment. If you have something like a fentanyl and benzodiazepine mix, they're two very different things. Naloxone doesn't work on benzodiazepines. So, we can treat one overdose with one thing, but the other substance, we don't have any resources.
According to the province's coroner's service, there have been 224 confirmed or suspected overdose deaths in Saskatchewan so far this year. People in a Regina neighborhood say drug use, loud noises, and violence are what they've had to put up with. And they say it all stems from the new YWCA building, which opened just last year. Regina Whitfield has that story.
Pam Ruby loves the Cathedral neighborhood she calls home. But since the YWCA opened its new building across the street from her last November, Ruby says she's seeing more issues, such as open drug use.
You hear a lot of them, like where they sit on the sidewalk and they're pulling out pipes and all this stuff, and they're smoking crack. It's not just weed, like you can see the difference.
Ruby says she sees garbage and drugs lying around and people fighting and shouting.
I was diagnosed with severe anxiety when I was a lot younger. I had come quite a lot in my recovery with my anxiety, only to turn around and have it go back to the way it was when I was first diagnosed because I am not able to feel safe.
She says YWCA leadership hasn't been listening to neighbors' concerns. The CEO for the YWCA, Melissa Coomber-Benson, says she understands some of the frustrations about the new building, including alarms going off or emergency vehicles having to respond to issues like drug overdoses. But she says drugs and alcohol have long been issues in the area. And some people may not understand those with complex needs.
There's a lot of fear in that unknown piece. And so sometimes it's really difficult to determine, is this fear or is this actual danger?
One woman who moved into the Y in January says staff were there for her in a time of desperate need for shelter.
We share and occupy the land, all of us. And people with mental health issues share and occupy the land with neighbors that don't have mental health issues. And it's the way of the world. They need to suck it up, I think.
Pamela Ruby says she and her neighbors are supportive of the YWCA's mission, but they also want to feel safe in their neighborhood. The local community association plans to host a meeting with neighbors and the YWCA with the hopes of relieving tensions. Jenny Whitfield, CBC News, Regina.
A First Nation in northwestern Saskatchewan has lost its only church to a fire. It started early last Monday morning on Thunderchild First Nation. The co-pastor tells CBC that he and his wife recently invested thousands of dollars in renovations into the church after purchasing the building last year, and they were just about to have a grand opening. The fire also destroyed expensive instruments and sound equipment. The couple learned of the fire from a neighbor.
When we got there, it was already pretty well all smoky, like from the seams, even from the doors, even where the people broke in from the back window and the side of the building. Did they pry it open, a piece of metal? This metal is high quality steel.
Thunderchild believes the building was broken into and the fire was intentionally started. RCMP say they are still working to confirm the cause of the fire. Well, another year has come and gone for Regina's Queen City Marathon. It was a race that featured some good weather and even greater memories for those who took part. Scott Larson has more.
3, 2, 1, go!
The Queen City Marathon celebrated its 25th anniversary on Sunday. Over 5,000 runners laced up in Regina. It was also the last weekend dedicated runners could get a qualifying time for next year's Boston Marathon.
There's many people that come here after maybe not qualifying, or they make it their race to qualify because it's fast, it's flat, and it's reliable.
Regina's Christopher Stoppler came first in the marathon, finishing the race in just over 2 hours and 36 minutes.
It was nice and easy going out. The back half of this course is always tough, and that got me, but hung in there. So, yeah, it's good. I'm glad to be done.
Also from Regina, Kelsey Haskowich was the top female marathoner, finishing in a time of 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Absolutely beautiful. Everyone here was super friendly. I wasn't expecting cheers the whole way. People were absolutely everywhere, just screaming, cheering, lots of high fives. It was, a great day for it, really.
For most of the runners, the marathon was more about achieving personal goals and running with friends. Kayla McKinnon completed the 10K run with her pal, Aminta Mahia.
I decided to do it because my friends were joining in on it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this for friendship. It's going to be fun. So, yeah, I did it again this year. Got to run with one of my best friends, and, yeah, we had a good time.
And for one person, it was about trying to set a Guinness World Record in a non-racing wheelchair with ski poles. Kyle Gianni posted a time of 2 hours and 51 minutes.
I did this one in Regina because this is where I was born. It's my hometown. I live in Vancouver now. I did the Vancouver Marathon in 2 hours and 59 minutes, so this one's obviously a little more favorable. There's less hills, and it's obviously a nice flat ground to push on.
The day turned out to be ideal for the marathon with sunny skies and moderate temperatures, and it was all thanks to hundreds of volunteers that made it happen. Scott Larson, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A contract deal between Air Canada and the union representing its flight attendants remains up in the air. Flight attendants overwhelmingly rejected a tentative agreement in a vote that wrapped up over the weekend. It included a 12% wage increase for junior flight attendants and 8% for senior staff. But there are no plans for a strike or lockout. The two sides agreed to mediation. If a deal can't be reached that way, they are set to move to binding arbitration. Stay with us. We have more news, and weather specialist Riley Lachuk has a look at our forecast after the break. Stay with us. Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced an $80 million tariff relief fund for businesses in Atlantic Canada. And he's also proposing millions of dollars in support for the aluminum sector. Kate McKenna has the details.
With the provincial election looming, Prime Minister Mark Carney visited Newfoundland and Labrador, announcing $80 million of a $1 billion fund intended to help Atlantic Canadian businesses weather the tariff storm.
Help them not just to invest, not just to endure, but to thrive.
Last week, the Carney government announced new plans and money to help tariff-afflicted industries.
Becoming more efficient in federal spending so that we have the room, we have the force to support our businesses so they can invest for the future.
This relief, this $80 million, hopefully that it's going to be an easy process, not a lot of bureaucracy, and that businesses can get the support they need. But we know there are businesses in Atlantic Canada right now that desperately need this support.
Meanwhile, in Quebec, Canada's industry minister sought to reassure a major industry under direct threat. The United States has slapped a 50% tariff on aluminum.
The Quebec aluminum sector will get its fair share, and we believe that with the projects that are being discussed right now with Alcoa, with Rio Tinto, and with Alouette, it's hundreds of millions of dollars.
Today's announcement is a very clear signal from the federal government, the Canadian government, Melanie, that the government stands behind us.
Still, the federal government insists the fight's not over. They want to see these tariffs lifted.
We need to think about the fact that the President of the United States have decided that it's his economy will be based on paying for having access to it.
Last week, the Prime Minister admitted it's unlikely the American tariffs will be lifted anytime soon. He said there could be some smaller sector-specific deals. But at the same time, both countries are preparing to review the existing free trade agreement starting next year. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, the calendar says September, but a lot of us still feeling like the middle of summer across the province today. Weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now to see if more of this is in store. Hi, Riley.
Well, thanks, Ethan. Overall, pretty decent afternoon, a pretty decent day today. Temperatures well above seasonal for this time of the year, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Still dealing with an air quality warning in parts of northwestern Saskatchewan because of fires that are burning in the area. Still hard to believe we're still talking about this into September, but pretty broadly across central and even into southwestern parts of the province. Maybe the sky looked a little milkier today. That's because of some of that smoke and that haze that's aloft being brought down thanks to more of a northerly wind throughout the day. Today, temperatures, boy oh boy, Monday afternoon, early September, 26 degrees in Regina, 26 for both Saskatoon outlook into Kindersley. These temperatures, normally we should be at about 19, 20 for this time of the year, so a good 5-6 degrees above seasonal in some cases, and even closer to 30 in Estevan in the afternoon hours. So yes, warmth. Triggered in part by this ridge that's formed in the jet stream off to the west. This does push a little bit further east as we get into the day on Tuesday and Wednesday, and that will lead to temperatures even warmer and even some above 30 temperatures in the forecast, which I'll get into in your long-range forecast. Throughout the afternoon hours, a mix of sun and clouds, maybe a bit cloudier at times, for example, in Regina. Through part of the afternoon, some scattered showers even out of some of this as well. So a bit of a mixed bag in terms of conditions today. Certainly central, northern parts of the province a bit sunnier today. As we see that ridge starting to push a little bit further eastward, we are looking at a sunnier start to the day as we get into your Tuesday. Maybe some fog patches first thing in the morning, though, with some of that extra moisture. I'll talk about that in just a moment, but as we get into Wednesday, we are looking at a surface low pushing across the territories, and a cold front in behind this could trigger a few showers as we get through Wednesday into Thursday, even the possibility into Thursday of seeing some thunderstorm activity as we get pretty broadly throughout the day. This particular forecast model depicting some of that early in the morning on Thursday, but I do think we get another chance of that with some of the daytime heating as we get into the day, into the afternoon hours on Thursday, for example. So we'll be keeping our eye on that in the coming days. Looking at visibility, where we have seen maybe some scattered showers today, the potential for some fog patches into the early morning, looking at the potential by 6 o'clock in the morning of visibility around 1 kilometer, for example, into the Parkland region. So just keep that in mind if you're on the roads early in the morning, that we could get into some patchy fog pretty broadly across parts of southern and central Saskatchewan, more so the further east you are in the province as we get into the early morning hours on Tuesday. Overnight temperatures look like this, above seasonal for this time of the year. 12 in Maple Creek, maybe a few showers yet to come in places like Assiniboia, Regina, Saskatoon, both 7 overnight, up to 27 in the afternoon. Looking at some 28s on the board, Ethan, throughout the afternoon. It gets warmer in your long range. I'll have that coming up.
All right, thanks, Riley. CBC News is getting exclusive access to Canada's annual military exercises in the Arctic. And it's become even more important as melting ice makes the far north more attractive to foreign powers. David Common shows us scenarios the Canadian Armed Forces are learning to handle.
In Canada's far north, military helicopters are bound for a mountaintop. This area, so vast, an oil tanker spotted below is just a blip on the horizon. It is just the latest in an ever-expanding list of ships up here as climate change opens up these waters. At the mountain peak, the Griffin helicopter lands gingerly and ejects a small team of soldiers. They will live on this land for days at a time, watching out to the waterway below, because there are adversaries of Canada, China and Russia in particular, who are very interested in this region. There is certainly risk to these troops, alone, isolated, exposed, and in freezing temperatures. But their job is guarding against risks below. For instance, what if an oil tanker should sink or run aground? It's a disaster that Canada's Coast Guard here is practicing for, pulling a protective boom which would contain a spill of any kind.
What is the risk if you can't contain?
Of course, in the Arctic, there's minimal resources and infrastructure, and so the impacts of a large spill or potential pollution event in the Arctic could be very significant.
It also means that response time could be days, at least. It's why ships are required to carry their own equipment and deploy it should they leak or spill contaminants. The question, though, is whether cargo vessels would actually do that, especially in such a vast area where it may seem few are watching. On the bridge of HMCS William Hall, one of the Navy's newest vessels, the crew must watch for ice even in summer.
Went back with the tide.
Sub-Lieutenant Eric Muir-Cressman says vessel traffic up here has exploded with climate change warming waters and melting ice. But it's also made ice more unpredictable. And with that comes risk.
It's so random where the ice actually is, converging and forming, that those routes that used to be fairly consistent, like you can get here through here at this time of year, they're jam-packed with ice. Or one that you thought was, closed is completely open.
Another late-game interception for Riders defensive back Tavon Campbell to seal the Green and White's victory in Winnipeg Saturday. They are champions of the Banjo Bowl, or Labor Day rematch if you prefer, with a 21-13 victory over the Bombers. It's the first time the Riders have won the annual match since 2018. They stay atop the league leaderboard with a 10-2 record, and they are back at home in Mosaic Stadium this Saturday to face the 5-7 Montreal Alouettes. Stay with us. We're back after the break. Ground has broken on a new memorial in Regina that will honor people who have lost their lives in the line of duty. It will be located on Memorial Way near the Legislative Building. It's expected to include the names of people who have died while working as firefighters, police officers, correction staff in the armed forces, and many other frontline public safety jobs. One Regina paramedic applauds the memorial as a good first step, but he also wants people to receive a medal honoring their family member.
When you think of a mother, a father, or a spouse, when they come to this memorial, they can't take a piece of that home. They can't take that piece and put it onto their heart and think of the loved one that they've lost. So this is why that we need to go and take that next step.
The memorial is expected to cost $900,000. About 80 names will appear on it when it's completed next fall.
All right, so we are looking at some warm temperatures in your long-range forecast. I want you to keep the normals for this time of the year in mind. 19 and 5 for Regina, but look at some of these temperatures toward the middle of the week. 29 into Wednesday, 27 for Thursday. There's that risk of thunderstorms or some passing showers, but even our low temperatures almost, in some cases, 10 degrees above seasonal for this time of the year. We do see some instability rolling through for the weekend again, and that will cool things off as we get into next week. So 22 for Saturday, maybe some showers into Sunday at 20 degrees as well. Saskatoon, pretty warm as well, 28 for Tuesday, mostly sunny skies. Then we start to see some of that cloud building in ahead of a cold front Wednesday into Thursday, so still quite warm. Our overnight temperatures, 12s and 13s toward the end of the week, but then we start to cool off as we get toward the weekend. Mostly cloudy skies. I mean, maybe a couple of showers Saturday into Sunday, but Ethan, temperatures remaining above seasonal right for the next 7 days.
Looks great. Thank you, Riley. And before we leave you, it is a big milestone for a Saskatoon theatre company. It was 40 years ago that La Troupe du Jour, the province's only francophone theatre company, first took to the stage in the Bridge City, and it's still going strong. This weekend, the company launched its 40th season with nearly 100 people in attendance. 5 new plays are on the agenda for the group's new season. We'll say félicitations to La Troupe du Jour. And that is our news for this Monday. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/Sask or our YouTube channel. And you can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.